Hey, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my co-host Mike Evans. Great Week 10. Well, not all the way in the books. We've got Monday Night Football, but Week 10 for the most part in the books. Mike, how are you? How was your weekend, buddy?
It was great. It was here in Denver, we don't have the Broncos game until Monday night, so it was a chance to just kind of sit back and watch a lot of football yesterday. And, boy, there's some impressive stories out there. How about C.J. Stroud? You've done some Houston games.
Yeah.
And we're at the point now where folks are starting to talk about C.J. Stroud as a possible MVP candidate, which after games like Sunday doesn't seem so far-fetched.
No, not at all. I mean, the way he's played, and let's face it, I mean, this is a Houston team that a year ago just was dreck. You know, they were talking about tanking for whoever and all that kind of stuff, and now you get, you get a new kind of attitude there. I love DeMeco Ryans, the way DeMeco coaches a football team, man. He's positive energy at all times. But C.J. Stroud is a guy that I've had a chance to sit down with now twice. And just one, when you sit down and you talk to him, man, he is so buttoned up and so thoughtful. And, it's just not one of those cliche type of baloney answers that you hear all the time. And we hear it in Denver forever. It's like they start listing guys like, hey, hey, Russ, what do you think is the key to the red zone? Hey, man, we got so many good players out here. We've got Bullseye out there at the left tackle position. We got McGlinchey at the right tackle position. They're just really playing well. Hey, I mean, I didn't even mention Cush, the way he's playing on the inside. But, Cortland Sutton will do it. And you're just like, for the love, that's not even what I asked you. For the love of Pete, answer a freaking question. And then you got C.J. Stroud, who's like, wow, let me think about that. That's a really good, and he'll detail kind of what he's thinking and the way he's trying to approach the game. And the thing that continues to resonate with me in regards to C.J. Stroud was a conversation I had with Bill Lazor. Now, Bill Lazor's a longtime coordinator, longtime offensive guy, a guy that consults and a guy that helps train this young quarterback every day. And he talked about feet. And he talked about the rhythm of an offense tied into the feet of the quarterback. And he said, the college game does not produce guys who are good with their footwork because they've never had to be. And it's interesting when you start to break it down, Mike, because you look at what's going on in our country in regards to football. It starts with 7-on-7. We run all these 7-on-7 camps where it's, you don't have offensive line, you don't have defensive line. It's just, shorts and T-shirt. But you're playing from shotgun all the time, so you're not working on the mechanics of your feet, how your feet are tying to routes. You're just being a complete and total sight thrower. And then it transitions to the high school game and then to the college game where you're never under center. Everything you operate is out of gun. And so what that does is it lends you to have like dirty and lazy feet. And so CJ was like, hey, listen, man, I have been under center since I started playing this game, since I was in Pop Warner, and then on to high school. And then in college, we played a lot out of shotgun, but we played a lot under Ryan Day at Ohio State under center. And you look at Houston, and I would tell you, having done several Houston games, that they're under center just about as much as anybody I watch on tape. There's a few teams that play under center more, but they are under center a ton. And his feet are so good, and he is so tied to the routes and the route combinations, and the kid is exceptional. The other thing I'll say sets him apart is he is so detailed that he just doesn't make the same mistake often. He just prides himself on that. And he says, it was funny because I had he and DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans was coming in. We were finishing with CJ. And he says, I drive Coach crazy because if something isn't perfect in practice, I always ask to do the repeat. And, they're trying to manage the reps of some of their offensive linemen or some of their receivers and everything else. He goes, no, I got to have it again. And then he'll call out, they'll try to put some, no, I don't want, the backup receiver. Right. And I want the same guy that I just screwed this thing up with because I want our timing to be down. So attention to detail. He's a fun guy to talk to and an unbelievable competitor, and his attention to detail is phenomenal.
Meanwhile, for Cincinnati, this is a real setback loss, isn't it? I know we were talking about it, and I felt strongly about it, and you didn't really argue with me. The idea that Cincinnati was emerging as maybe the team in the AFC that nobody would want to play. Well, now all of a sudden they kind of one step forward, two steps back type thing.
I still think you look at Joe Burrow and what Joe Burrow was able to do, but let's face it. I mean, 316 yards passing, only 60 yards rushing. They are speaking the exact opposite of Houston. They may run 2 plays under center at any time during the course of a game. So they are a shotgun team that is based upon Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow pushing it down the football field. And they did that on occasion, although he threw a couple of picks in that particular game. But look at the juxtaposition of Houston rushing it for whatever they rushed it 188 yards, and Cincinnati rushing it for 60 yards. And the balance and what that balance does for you in the play-action game and all those different things, and then helps eliminate, even though C.J. Stroud did throw a pick, but it helps eliminate and helps you win that turnover battle. Because when you start talking about most likelihood of turnovers, when it comes to fumbling, the number one culprit of fumbling is the quarterback. The number 2 guys are the receivers. Then it goes to the running backs, and then obviously the interceptions. So it probably goes, in that order: interceptions, quarterback. That's where the majority of your issues are going to come from. So if you're running the ball, it takes you out of those positions where you have the potential to lose the turnover battle. So I just love the way Houston's playing. I love DeMeco Ryans. I love the way they're playing. But I still look at Cincinnati as one of those teams that, push comes to shove, not a lot of people are going to want to play the Cincinnati Bengals.
You got an interesting game between the Browns and the Ravens. And this is the league where you start to think, hey, I can really get on board with this team. They really seem like they're starting to hit a roll. They really look like a team that's becoming formidable. They're putting it all together. Yeah. And then they go out and submit a performance. It makes you wonder what happened.
Right.
And doesn't the Ravens fall into that category? Not only are they playing well, they build the big lead, and then they just cough it up.
Yeah, it's almost like we've done our work here for the day. Now let's just go ahead and put it in cruise control. And that's one problem of playing in the NFL. All these teams are so equally yoked when it comes to talent that if you shut it down mentally, even for a quarter or two, or even for a series or two, not a quarter or two, but a series or two, man, it's hard to flip the switch back on. And, you've got to stay. When you've got your foot on somebody's throat, you can't take it off in the National Football League, because those guys are talented. One thing about the Browns, they're a big physical football team as well. And I think from a physicality standpoint, mano a mano, I thought the Ravens dominated that game early, but I thought they let the Browns back into it. And then the one guy that we've had a ton of question marks about, rightfully so, Deshaun Watson, he's been a guy that, what is he? What is he not? Is this the worst free agent acquisition in the history? Man, he scrambled a couple of times. He kept the plays alive a couple of times. He threw the ball. He threw the ball fairly well. I don't know what his final stats were, but I saw a bunch of throws that were good throws in the middle of the football field.
13 of 23, 223 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. One of those, the pick six. And ran 8 times for 41 yards.
Yeah, it was. I guess it was the what I saw, because I didn't watch the game. I didn't watch the game fully. I watched a few highlight packages and stuff. But his scrambles and his ability to make some plays happen with his feet seemed to be good. Yeah, he's still one of those guys that's a question mark. But they're a big physical team. Defensively, they match up pretty much with anybody. And I really thought it was more about the Ravens just kind of feeling to me like it was just like, okay, we've got this one in the bag. And they cost me a pick too, by the way. I did pick the Ravens in our moneymaker picks, and they had a nice lead, and I felt pretty good about that, Mike. And then boom, they just kind of crapped in their hats.
I think we both went 1 and 2, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we've actually been pretty good this year, but
I don't know about that, but
not horrible.
Yeah, not horrible, but kind of average.
Yeah, kind of average. But it's just, I think when it comes to the AFC, then. Stop me if you've heard this before. The only team you can really, I think, trust what you're going to get every week, and even they've had a couple slips this year, but it's Kansas City, right? Does it feel like it's Kansas City and then a big gap, or?
Man, Yeah, Miami only beats teams that are awful, right?
Right.
So if you're good, if you play a team that's good, you'll get beat if you're
Right.
Miami. Who else? Kansas City, obviously, although they've, like you said, they've had a couple of flub ups. Week 1, Detroit. I mean, that was one where, if you remember, a receiver couldn't hold on to the football because they scored 14 points. So it was Kadarius Toney who dropped the ball on several different occasions that really cost Kansas City that game. And then, I mean, you can't 16 times in a row you beat the Broncos. Eventually, you're gonna have one of those letdown type of games. So yeah, I think it would be Kansas City. I'm trying to think of AFC. Is there anybody else that I would look at and go, that team really? Like I thought it was the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe it still is the Ravens. Maybe it's still because they came out and dominated early. But yeah, those are probably the two best teams still in my mind.
So the AFC North continues to be just an unbelievable division. All 4 teams would be in the playoffs right now. Pittsburgh. We talked about it last week. It continues again. 9 straight games now where they've been outgained by the opponent, but they find another way to win. It's remarkable. 6-3, despite making NFL history for something that's really kind of reflects ineptitude.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch them. It's fun to watch the way they operate as an offense because they're not worried about what you think. Like they're not worried about what kind of numbers are we going to be able to put up on the offensive side of the board. What kind of passing structures are we going to get into? Man, they run the football. They've got a great mix between Harris and Warren, and Warren seems to me to be it is Warren, right? Yeah. Seems to me to be the more dynamic of the two runners. Like he is the guy in the last 2 weeks. He's been the guy that's been averaging, 6-7 yards a carry, making the explosive plays. So it's almost, I hate the cliche, the kind of back to the thunder and lightning or the hammer and the nail, whatever. I don't know what the cliche thing is there, but I like their mixture in the backfield. And then it's just about, hey, quarterback, manage the game. Don't turn it over. We don't have to be great in the passing game. And that's kind of who they are. And they rely on that Pittsburgh style of we're going to play good defense. We're going to get after your quarterback. We're going to do those things.
Yeah, I'm looking at their stat line. And Kenny Pickett, 14 of 23 for 126 yards. But look at this. Jalen Warren, 15 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. Najee Harris, 16 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. I have you look at that. That's like porn for you.
Yeah, that run game right there.
That's like porn.
Let's limit the quarterback because let's face it, quarterbacks,
porn.
It really.
Mark
it's
Schlereth
so
porn
difficult.
right
it's
here.
so difficult. If the safety plays low, throw it over his head. If he throw it underneath. I think okay. So yeah, that is that. I love the way they play football, and I love the fact that they're not worried. Like one thing about having longevity and having security in your job. You're not worried about winning a beauty contest.
True.
Right? Mike Tomlin doesn't care about a beauty contest. Mike Tomlin cares about wins. And that's exactly what they're doing. I love the style. I love the way they do it.
You love it, but you hear a lot of complaints from Steeler fans about Matt Canada as the OC. What would be your message to them? Because you just said this is a game plan you love.
You're 6-3. I mean, hey, listen, here's the deal. Matt Canada, how are we going to win? We got a young quarterback. How are we going to win? What's our best opportunity to win? And you know what it comes down to, Mike? All right, run the ball, control the tempo of the game, help us eliminate 3 possessions from our defense's plate, right? So they can have a little bit better, hitch, like hop in their step, if you will. And so for me, like this is how we're going to win games. We're going to rely on our defense to play really well. As an offense, we're going to try to possess the ball, even if we don't out-yardage anybody, which we don't. But we're going to try to possess the ball, and then we're going to make sure in doing that, that we control the tempo of the game and take it down from 12 possessions to 9 possessions for our defense to defend. And if we do that, we're going to be in every ballgame. They're not blowing anybody out with that formula. That's a formula. You know what? That's a formula, but that's a recipe for one-score games. Here's our one-score recipe, and that's how they get it done.
In a league where scoring is down dramatically, lowest it's been in 13 years, and this is 2 years in a row in which scoring has been down in the NFL. Don't tell that to the Lions and the Chargers. Easily the most entertaining game of the week, 41-38, decided finally at the end by a last-second field goal, one of 5 walk-off field goals, by the way, to end it, which has never happened before in NFL history. But fun show put on by Detroit and the Chargers. Man, the Lions, I don't know if they're ready to make a run to the Super Bowl yet, but boy, they are going to be a major thorn in a Philadelphia or San Francisco side.
I think
Dallas.
I think they're one of those teams that they'll at times they play to the level of the competition, so to speak. They'll get in a shootout. Defensively, I've seen them be really poor, and I've seen them be really good. Last week, giving up big plays over the top defensively, and their inability to consistently rush the passer, which seems kind of odd to me, but they haven't had a consistent pass rush enough of the time. But I will tell you, offensively, when you talk to Dan Campbell, the way he wanted to build his football team, and it started with offensive line. And if you ask him and talk to him about, what's the strength of your team? Our offensive line. He does not hesitate. Our offensive line is the strength. That's how we built this thing. And then you go back and look at the way they ran the ball between Montgomery and Gibbs. It was unreal the way they ran the ball last weekend. And just the physical nature, they're just a wide zone, tight zone, cut back football team. They'll mix in, obviously, like everybody, some gap stuff, but really good running the football. And Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, the connection that he has had and the way he presents the game to Jared Goff and the way Jared Goff has accepted the coaching and saying, okay, here's a different way to look at, you've run curl flat your whole life this way, or you've run double slant your whole life. You've run all these concepts your whole life this way, but here's just a little different nuance or a different way to look at things. They have this unbelievable connection, and I've said this, Jared Goff has played his way into a top kind of, 6, 7, 8 type of quarterback, maybe top 5 quarterback in this league. Yep. And, he had another great game last week. I think he threw two touchdowns without any picks, and you're getting that kind of production. Amon-Ra St. Brown is he's a football player. He's one of those receivers that's just a football player. That was a shootout. But again, I would imagine, going back and watching it and looking at, looking at what was going on. I mean, I'm sure it's the Lions had all these rushing yards and were more balanced and everything else. And I'm sure the Chargers were, all about throwing the football, 80 million times. And, and they had unbelievable production, guys like Keenan
Allen, 11 catches, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. But, that's just the way the Chargers are structured.
But, speaking of statistical porn, again, you look at the Lions, you had Jared Goff, 23 of 33, 333 yards, those 2 touchdowns. And then they ran the ball 31 times for 200 yards with a nice
500-plus yards of offense.
David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, carrying equal loads there. So it's kind of like Pittsburgh, but with a better passing attack.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
So where would you put Detroit? What your message to Lions fans would be what? Your team can be this, fill in the blank. What? How far can they go this year?
Your team has the chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Really?
Oh yeah. Or your team has the chance to get into the playoffs and lose in the very first round. That's who they that to me. They're going to be in every game. So if you lose, you're losing a close one. But I think they're that talented. I think their receiving core is that talented. I think their O-line, they can run it, they can throw it. We saw that. I think the one thing that scares me a little bit defensively, they are prone to give up big plays at times. They are prone, like I said, not to get enough pressure on the quarterback. That scares me a little bit.
You know, I like to give you grief about your love of the Shanahans.
Mm-hmm.
And
sure you do.
With San Francisco struggling of late, losing, 3 in a row,
Yeah.
I enjoyed giving you grief. But deep down, I understood that this is a good San Francisco team.
Yeah.
And they got some guys back healthy for this game. And, boy, they went out and sent a very clear message. Do not forget about the 49ers. That's a good Jacksonville team, and they hammered them 34-3.
Absolutely. Obviously, they had Debo back. They had the full complement of offensive weapons, healthy McCaffrey, Ayuk. George Kittle was huge. I think he only had 3 catches, but he had over 100 yards receiving, some big plays down the sideline. So, like all those things, when they're orchestrating that way, their ability to run the ball. I tell you, the other thing is some of the play design. They ran an orbit sweep off a tight end jet motion that was just unbelievably well designed and executed. You know, where you're like, oh my gosh, because you know that how they set those things up. You know how Kyle Shanahan will run a play. Even if it's not a very good, even if it only is netting 2 yards a play, and he'll run it 3 times just to set up the one explosive off of it. So, like, that's one of the things about running the football that's imperative is if you really run it well. I mean, if you not even well. Let me amend that. If you run it with frequency, then you know what? You will have opportunity. Frequency in the run game equals opportunity in the pass game. And so even if you're only getting 2 yards a carry, this is what a lot of young offensive coordinators don't understand. They run it once or twice at 2 yards, and they're like, well, we're going to have to throw it all the time. Mm-hmm. But you keep with that frequency. I never write this down, Mike. That's a really good. Sometimes I got to get my handy-dandy notebook, but that just popped into my head. Yeah. That is it's really way better than
this is.
So
folks,
frequency.
what you're looking at right now. This is kind of like Benjamin Franklin or Newton. You know, some of the great discoveries in our lifetime, how they came to pass. Same thing with Mark Schlereth.
There it is.
Schlereth, Franklin, Schlereth, Newton. No difference.
Right there. Frequency equals opportunity. So frequency, and we'll put a little R there for running in the passing game. So you just
genius.
You know what you guys just saw? You just witnessed.
Yeah.
You just witnessed absolute genius from a football acumen standpoint. And I just want to say this to everybody out there: you're welcome. So if you run it enough, and if you're committed to it enough, and you show that particular play over and over and over again, when you show it, you know what happens to defensive players? Because defensive players, let's be honest. Yeah, like, can we be honest just between us? They're stupid. Defensive players are dumb. That's why they play defense, Mike. They're not smart enough to play offense. Why do you think DBs play DB? Because they failed at wide receiver. That's why they play DB. Everybody knows that.
This is not how you make friends and influence people.
Everybody knows that.
This is not.
Why do you become a tight end? Because people realize you're too smart for the defensive end position.
Jeez.
That's what ends up happening. Or how do you become a defensive end? You were a tight end that was just a little too dumb to understand all the motions and the shifts.
Wait a minute. Didn't you tell me once that in college you started out on defense and then you moved to offense? Would you suddenly get smart overnight?
No. See, you've missed part of the story. I started out on offense, and I was so gifted athletically. They decided to move me to defense from offensive line. So I'm one of the rare people that have ever transitioned from offensive line to defensive line. And then after I got hurt, they realized injuries slowed down a little bit. He's too smart for this place. You got to move him back over to the offensive side of the ball. I guess I have it all. Speed, athleticism, quickness, agility, humility, and intelligence.
A lot of iddities.
I am big into the iddities.
So San Francisco, on games like this, they show how multiple they are. They can beat you with their offense. They can beat you with their defense. But if I press you and say, okay, the identity, the hallmark, the rock, the foundation of what San Francisco is what? Their offense or their defense?
Oh, shoot. I think it's their offense. And again, their ball control, their play design, their play design that create explosives, Mike. Their play design that creates explosives allows their defense. It's a perfect complement to their defense. It allows their defense to consistently play with the lead and consistently create opportunities to attack the ball, intercept the ball. And you look at last week, or you look at Sunday, I think they had 5 or 6 sacks. And that was a big thing in the 3-game losing streak we talked about, their inability to rush the quarterback all of a sudden. And a lot of that was because they weren't producing offensively. So I think the offense leads to defensive production. And that is the nature, in a nutshell, of complementary football. And I think the Niners are as good as it gets when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Boy, if the Dallas Cowboys could play the New York Giants every week, they'd be coasting to a Super Bowl championship. 2 games against
you could say that pretty much about anybody that plays the Giants.
Good
if
point.
you could just line up against the Giants every week.
Fair point.
Dude, they had
89-17 in the 2 games this year.
Well, they had Danny DeVito playing quarterback for them.
Tommy DeVito, but yeah.
Yeah.
Who admitted this past week that he still lives at home.
Right.
His mom makes his bed.
Right.
Which is a pretty good deal, actually, when you think about it.
There's nothing wrong. Like, hey, don't be in a hurry to grow up, right?
Even if you're the starting quarterback for the New York Giants.
Yeah, I mean, even if you are, like, hey, I got time. Don't rush right into it. Plus, I would suggest also for Tommy DeVito not to rush into anything too. Like,
You might want to rent, not buy.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know how long you're going to be in the Jersey area. So, no, good for him, man. Good for him for getting a start. We kid because we care, but. Boy, I tell you what, the Giants, you're 100% right. Boy, they really stink. They're bad.
So where are we at with the Cowboys? You know that so much of the national media out there just is looking for every opportunity to crown the Cowboys. You are the biggest Cowboy skeptic I know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you take anything from this performance?
From that game? No.
Anything.
No. I mean, it's the Giants. The Giants are a bad football team. So, I mean, you can't take – didn't they get blown out by the Raiders right after the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels? I mean, they're a bad football team. That's all you can say about them. And, the Cowboys, when there's not a lot on the line, man, they are world beaters. When there's not a lot of pressure, they are big time. But, when they line up against somebody who's good, it's like the Miami Dolphins. They just aren't the same football team. So if I was handicapping the NFC right now, and I said, okay, how's your hierarchy of good football
Top
teams?
5 teams. Top 5. Rank them 1 through 5.
All right,
NFC.
off the top of my head, I'd probably go Philly. Then I'd probably go San Fran. Mm-hmm. Then I think I would go Detroit. Then I think I would go probably Dallas. And then who would round that out? Who would be the next? I mean
Seattle.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a big drop off.
Yeah, it is a big drop off. But there's my top. So of the division winners, right? We just named all the division winners. So of the division the East.
I mean, in Minnesota, because you got basically after those big 4 there, you got Seattle at 6-3, Minnesota 6-4, New Orleans 5-5, Tampa 4.
No.
I mean, it's just a big drop off. So.
But I think of the big 4, Dallas is 4th out of 4.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
And your message to Seahawk fans would be what?
My message to Seahawk fans?
Yeah. 6-3.
Yeah. I like you guys. As long as you don't play any of those 4 teams, I like you guys.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean that's kind
of a little pat on the head, send you along your way type thing, huh?
Yeah, that's when the first 3 girls you asked to the prom said no. You go with the fourth. You go with the one that says yes. You know, at the fourth down the line.
So if Dallas,
how was that, by the way, for you when 3 girls turned you down for the prom? I'm just impressed, you little shaver, that you just kept on going. You're like the little engine that could.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I exhibit a lot of good stick-to-itiveness, a word you love. I stuck with it.
You just stuck with it. You just keep asking until somebody says yes. Eventually, somebody's going to say yes.
It's the law of averages, right?
Right.
I mean, hey.
Just cast a wide net.
Make 7 outs out of every 10 ABs. You're still going to the Hall of Fame.
Bing.
That was always my strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, lower your standards. Have low standards. Things are going to work out.
Every day, folks. Every day with this guy. And I love him most of the time, but boy, you could be a dick.
Yes, occasionally. I didn't know. I mean, I've never been turned down to the prom like you. So I just wanted to know what it felt.
I never got turned down. I never got turned down.
This is me trying to empathize. I mean, just trying to be there with you. Mm-hmm. You know, into the battle. Yes.
Yeah. What a dick. I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I'm
That's
done.
it? All right.
I'm left.
Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Stinkin' Truth Podcast. Make sure you like us. Make sure you send us a message. Do all the things that you do. Subscribe. Please subscribe. And stay tuned also because we also have the Leftovers podcast coming up where we break down the game that I did last weekend. That was New Orleans at Minnesota, the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, the hottest team. I think 5 straight wins. The hottest team in the NFC right now, maybe in the NFL. So stick to it. Stick with us on that. Like I said, for everybody involved, thank you so much for listening. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin' Truth, we thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. If you want to see more of our videos, you can also be sure to check out our playlist. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of that.
Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.